High school is awkward. In many ways, whether we want to admit it or not, this stage in life can actually be pretty dangerous. You're just starting to get a glimpse into the real world while simultaneously dealing with massive changes within yourself. From physical changes to trying to find your path in life, who you really are, and what you want to do with the rest of your life. A lot of this self-reflection and contemplation will all take place within the boundaries of the hallways. Something that was also true for 14-year-old Philip Chism in the moments leading up to an event that would go on to change not only his, but several others' lives forever. When a crime is committed, there unfortunately isn't always immediate proof of who did what and how it happened, but in the case of tonight's first story, most of it was captured by nearby CCTV security cameras, and some points in chilling detail. Danvers High School, Danvers, Massachusetts, October 22nd, 2013. At 2:54 p.m., a woman is seen leaving from a classroom heading towards a bathroom. This would go on to be Colleen Ritzer, Philip Chism's 24-year-old math teacher. Just after she leaves, Philip appears, leaving from the same classroom, tails her down the hallway and eventually into the same bathroom. Several minutes later, Philip is seen emerging from the bathroom, speed walking down the hallway, goes all the way down the stairs into the main level, and is seen just moments later wheeling in a large trash bin back into the same bathroom. He is then seen now leaving the premises. The thing is, however, Colleen Ritzer was never seen leaving the bathroom. As you probably already know, she is unfortunately inside of the trash bin Mr. Chism was seen wheeling out of the school. Her body was later found in nearby woods, almost entirely nude, with slash marks across her throat, and a branch that was used to sexually assault her still left in place. However, where and how Colleen actually died is still unclear. The local coroner's office believes she was knocked out in the bathroom but remained alive until she was wheeled out to the woods, where Philip would later carry out the rest of his sick plans, just before stealing her credit card and casually using it to go see a movie and buy himself dinner. All of this in the same day he brutally murdered his teacher, defiled her corpse, then left it in the woods to rot. Now, before we close off today's video, I would like to point out a couple of unusual points leading up to these tragic events where Philip's behavior is rather concerning. First, take note of his body language here. He seems to be thinking hard just before checking his left pocket. He hesitates here, briefly dipping back into Colleen's classroom before emerging again, hooded now, despite the fact that this does absolutely nothing to conceal his identity. Just a few seconds later, we see he's donning gloves, resting the case that this was premeditated, very well thought out, planned, and executed, despite the clear motive never truly being offered. According to Philip in later testimony, this all had to do with Colleen supposedly assaulting him and him, quote-unquote, taking his power back. At least that is what Philip had to say. Roughly 10 minutes after Philip first entered the women's restroom, he exits, startling a female student in the process. He keeps his hood up, his head down, and speed walks out of the building. Upon return, his blue hoodie is now gone. Philip returns to the classroom to pick up another change of clothes and several bags. He puts on a red hoodie this time, along with a ski mask, which he then removes just before running down the hallway yet again. Moments later, he returns wheeling the trash bin that would later contain his teacher. Upon emerging from the bathroom for a second time now, Philip's red hoodie is now gone, and he's once again donning a ski mask, only to switch it up again seconds later, exposing the top of his head and face. By the time he's outside, he seems to take up the opposite configuration, with his whole face now exposed as he walks past a bystander. About an hour later, Philip returns to the building, pants now covered in blood and shoes missing. Again, half of his face still exposed. Philip then dips away into a different bathroom, changes into an entirely different new set of clothes, and then goes about his day. Now again, his overall behavior is extremely bizarre, especially when you take into account that he left his bloody clothes at the scene in the bathroom alongside his backpack, which contained his school ID card and a note that read, "I hate you all." On top of all of this, he decided to keep the bloody box cutters that was used in the attack alongside Colleen's ID and underwear, which police later found upon his arrest. In some ways, there did seem to be calculated and premeditated efforts to hide evidence, but at the same time, it is hard to believe that he was unaware of security cameras that are strung all throughout the entire school, which had him covered from every angle throughout most of the event. It is of no surprise that authorities had no trouble pinning this one down on Philip, who was ultimately tried as an adult and charged with a life sentence. It is also probably of no surprise that just 1 year after Colleen's murder, Philip would then go on to try to kill yet again. But instead of a school teacher, this time his intended victim was a youth worker, one that was employed where Philip was being held pending his trial. Luckily, this time the boy was not successful and instead only landed himself another charge, this time attempted murder. It is hard to say what exactly this story leaves us with. It's hard to even imagine that someone at such a young age, such as Philip was, 14, someone barely even a teenager yet, could be so dangerous and go on to commit such heinous crimes, all seemingly without remorse. Many would love to believe that they'd be able to catch all of the warning signs, all of the red flags, maybe even step in to help and prevent these sort of tragedies, if only they could. And while that's all good in theory, as we all know, that is unfortunately not the reality of it. That is not how things usually play out. And while it may seem like justice was served in this case, the Ritzer family isn't convinced. This due to the fact that Philip was given a life sentence, as I mentioned earlier, but then was also granted a chance at parole. To anyone, myself included, the idea of a convicted murderer even having the option of ever receiving parole is terrible in itself, but for Colleen's family, it is gut-wrenching, even more so, heartbreaking. Keep in mind, Colleen was young herself, only in her mid-20s, when her life was unfortunately taken from her.